Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to week number 2 in CU101 Culinary Foundations. Let's give yourselves a hand. Give yourselves a hand. We're a week through. That first week is the toughest one. I promise. Well, let me say this correctly. The way everything operates gets easier for you because now you have some familiarity. But the work is going to ramp up and get more difficult. So as you have less difficulty with the technology and stuff like that, we add more difficulty with the cooking and the techniques. So it balances out, okay? But let's talk a little bit. Chef Jackie, how are you this evening?
Doing well. I just sent you a quick message.
Oh, fantastic.
You want to make me co-host?
Oh, yeah. Just in case. My internet did go out last night.
Internet's been funky lately.
Yeah.
But overall, everything this week looks good. I'm really impressed with not only the work put out, but how early almost everybody that's got their stuff in.
Oh my goodness. There were so many early submissions. I love it.
If you want feedback early, that's how you have to do it.
Yeah.
That's how, and it's great. I know we're not trying to have errors or issues with our submissions, but it happens. We know that.
Mm-hmm.
But when you submit early, I can get back to you and say, hey, go check this out. Watch this little short video and resubmit, because I know everybody's itching for their grade. So if you get in early, I can then get in and grade it early, and then you know where you're sitting. So nice job with that. Cuts look good. Knife grip looks good. Uniform. I loved seeing everybody that had their kits that arrived. I'm looking forward to seeing everybody else's who come in over the next week or so. Looking very prideful and wearing their uniform correctly all the way up. That apron, the hat, looking good. I really like seeing that in those photos. Cuts look good. Keep practicing. Everybody wants to be a perfectionist. I get that. Don't. In weeks 1 and 2, don't be a perfectionist. And I only say that not because I don't want you to strive for perfection, but I don't need perfection. I need to see improvement. I need to see growth. I don't need or expect, your brunoise to be a perfect little cube that's 1/8 of an inch by 1/8 of an inch by 1/8 of an inch. But I do expect to see nice cubes that are close to that and a whole half cup measuring cup the same size and shape. I've never worked anywhere where the chef came through with a ruler and said, you're not at a perfect 1/8 of an inch cut on all of your cuts. But they do look at how consistent is it. Is it close to the cut they asked for? If they ask you for a small dice and you give them a large dice, you have a problem. If they ask for a small dice and you give them a little bit in between, we're doing okay. So really nice job there. One thing that was forgotten for a few people, not very many, I will say not very many, narrative. You have to do a narrative every week. You will never get away from the narrative. The narrative, the first 2 weeks is worth 25%. Starting in week 3, it goes up. Between narrative and on-time submission and let's be real. Week 3, narrative, on-time submission, uniform, and sanitizer is 60%. Just doing the work, putting your uniform on, setting up sanitizer, and completing the narrative is 60% of your grade starting week 3. You could, and I talk about this again later on, week 3, you could completely butcher production weeks 3 through 12. If you tell me in the narrative how you screwed up, what you'll do differently, you'll pass. You'll get 100 probably, because you told me what you did wrong and how you're going to fix it. And that's what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for perfection. I'm looking for learning. You probably learn more when you mess something up than if you get it right.
That's absolutely true.
I could get it right because I'm lucky one time. I get it wrong 3 times and I get it right the 4th time. I now know how to get it right the 5th, 6th, 8th, 100th time.
Mm-hmm.
So don't stress that too much. Don't be a perfectionist. It's not what I'm looking for. And the other thing, I'm gonna say it now, and I'm sure it'll come up again. Uniform. I love the photos where you're wearing it. Keep it on. I caught a few people, whether it was they made their they did their production and then put the uniform on and took the picture, or they took the picture of their uniform and then took it all off. It's very easy for me to figure out when you take it off.
Mm-hmm.
So don't. Put it on, wear it with pride, and treat your home kitchen like you're in the industry, like you're working in a restaurant kitchen. Most restaurants, I think I've only worked in one where I did not have to wear a chef coat, where I did not have to have pants and closed-toed shoes, where I did not have to wear my apron and my hat. Get used to it. Learn to love it now. Think of it this way. When you get into the industry, you don't have to worry about picking out work clothes. Put on your black pants, put on your non-slip shoes, carry your chef coat, and go to work. Wear a white shirt underneath or a plain shirt underneath. Have that chef coat ready. Take it into work. Put it on. A couple places I've worked have given me a coat, and they have a laundry company that come through, but you're going to wear a uniform. Just learn to love it now. But again, in terms of production, really nice job. Really looking forward to seeing week 2, and then weeks 3 through 12 when we really start to ramp up production. John, absolutely. It's just like being in the military. If you read Chef Lucas, it's not this week's where they talk about how Escoffier set up his brigade system because it was a military structure.
Yeah.
That's where it came from.
Yeah,
so
that's where the uniforms come from. And, you know, they even, if you look at like old historical uniforms, they look very similar to, you know, the double buttons and all that kind of stuff. And it was all set up that way because he saw so much discipline, you know, in the military. And when you're not worried about what you're wearing, you're worried about what you're doing, right? So it makes it much easier. Just I don't have to think about what I'm putting on to work every day. I just put on the same thing every day so I can worry about what I'm doing and not what I'm wearing. It also, you know, when you find yourself in a kitchen of everybody wearing the same thing, it automatically gives you like that feeling of being on a team, right? We're all wearing the same thing. We're all dressed the same way. We're all working toward the same goal. So that helps as well. That's why it's so important for you guys to wear your uniforms when you're doing your assignments. Like we talked about last week, you're going to take it a little bit more seriously when you're wearing the uniform. It's going to feel a little silly at first, yeah, to be in your home kitchen, you know, especially if your kids are like, look at mommy's costume or whatever, right? Yeah, absolutely. You know, Dad, why are you wearing pajamas to make dinner, right? Absolutely. It's going to be a little weird, but guess what? Here in a couple weeks, when you guys start cranking out delicious food, it's going to be like Pavlov's dog. Do you guys know what that is? That's the scientist who rung a bell every time he fed the dog, right? And then eventually he would ring the bell, wouldn't feed the dog, but the dog would salivate. The dog associated the bell sound with food, right? Your friends and family are going to associate, oh, they got the coat on. That means good food's coming. Here comes the good food, right? They're gonna get into it. So it's gonna be a little weird for the first couple weeks, but you'll get there. It's so many people, Chef Jackie, asking me, how do we get these knife cuts perfect, right? So I brought in, I just got a quick guest is gonna pop in and tell you how to get perfect knife cuts. All right, you guys ready?
Not a game. We talking about practice. Not a game. Not the game that I go out there and die for and play every game like it's my last. Not the game. We're talking about practice, man. I mean,
practice. Practice, 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 practice. That's it. It's all about practice. I've cut a gajillion potatoes in my life, and I still have to pay attention and focus to get those perfect cuts, right? Chef Jackie said, you know, very rarely does anybody bust out a ruler to measure your cuts. Well, I used to work at a sushi restaurant, and we did not a brunoise, but a fine brunoise, all right? Which is, you know, your brunoise is 1/8 of an inch by 1/8 of an inch. A fine brunoise is 1/16 of an inch by 1/16 of an inch. It's almost invisible, all right? So we used to do a brunoise of garlic, okay? So I would have to take Usually it took like a quart and a half of peeled heads of garlic, and I would have to cut them into perfect tiny cubes. And I would have to fill up a 1/4 cup container of those. And so I would do my cubes, and I cut them up, and I put them in the container, and I give it to the chef de cuisine. And he would bring it over to my table, and he'd tap it on the table, and he'd sink them down, right? He'd compact them and say, "No, you're not done." And so I said, "Okay, chef." So I get more garlic, and I do more garlic, and then I fill it up, and I tap it down. I'm like, "Yeah, I got him this time." And so I give it to him. "There you go, chef." So he would take that 1/4 cup, dump it out on my cutting board, spread it into an even thin layer, pull out a pair of tweezers, and pick out every piece that wasn't a perfect cube. And all those little tiny pieces, those would go into sauces and soups and stuff like that. So he would pick all those out. We'd put it back in the container. He'd say, "Okay, now you're not done." And so then I would continue to do it. The first few times I did that, it took me like 2 hours. It was crazy, okay? But the more and more I did it, the faster and faster I got. And, you know, at some point I was like, "Chef, this is bananas. Like, why do they all have to be perfect?" And so he said, "Come in for dinner tonight." So I came in for dinner, and they served me the dish that used that garlic. Okay, it was a high-end sushi restaurant, best place here in town. And the dish was 3 pieces of fish, right, raw fish on some rice, and each one had 3 fine brunoise of garlic on top, right? And so it was a tuna, so it was a dark red, and then it had 3 perfect white cubes of garlic on top. And so when I saw that, I was like, that's why they have to be perfect. Because that, I mean, imagine 3 little white dots on a background of dark red, that's gonna pop, right? You're gonna notice that. And so when you see that on the plate, you go, as a diner, whoa, look at those perfect tiny cubes. How long did that take somebody? 2 hours. That's how long it took somebody. 2 hours to get that. But I realized, you know, the why. And we'll talk a lot about, you know, well, when we're moving through this program, why is so important. Why do we have you do the things we do? It's not because we don't want you to have fun. It's not because we don't want you to have some creativity. You're going to get those opportunities moving forward. We have you guys do something so very specifically because that's the way it's done in the food service industry, because we want you executing best practices. We want you doing things the way you'll be doing them in a professional kitchen, okay? And even if you're gonna find yourself in a food truck, or you're gonna find yourself in a catering company or something like that down the road, these little bits of professionalism, whether it's a uniform all the way through your assignment, right? Whether it's labeling your ID photo, right? Those little bits of professionalism will go a long way no matter what facet of the industry you find yourself in. So that's another thing we wanted to talk to you guys about real quick, is professionalism, okay? And that's in every sense of this. I know you guys are doing this program kind of when you can, at home, which is great, right? The opportunity to be able to do that is fantastic. But what does sometimes happen is you get a little too comfortable and a little too casual with maybe your uniform, you know, is not buttoned all the way up. Right, something like that. Maybe, oh, I can't find my hat right now, so I'll just do it without my hat, right? Little things like that don't fly in the industry, okay? Those things are noticed by your bosses and your guests and your clients, and they can cost you business, all right? Another thing we wanted to talk about as far as professionalism goes is messaging, whether it's a text or an email, even in the chat. Especially this week, we're going to start using discussion forums where your classmates can see what you're writing. It's important that you do your best to use proper grammar and to use as few like text style abbreviations as possible. I know they're becoming more and more prevalent in society, but when you're writing professional documents, when you're writing your resume, when you're writing quotes for catering events, when you're writing menus, all these kinds of things need to be very professional. So again, yeah, it's just a discussion forum about sanitation mistakes, but let's try to treat it as professionally as possible. When you're treating those things professionally in this setting, you're more likely to treat them professionally further down the road. Just like we say, wear your uniform for your assignment, right? It makes you stand a little taller. It makes you think an extra second about what you're about to do, and everything works out better for you down the road when you're just trying to be a little bit more professional. And we don't say that because anybody's like crazy messed up. Like if you sent me an email this week and you put like LOL in it, don't think I'm talking straight to you, right? That's okay. You know, when we're going back and forth, you know, those little things are all right. Okay. We're just speaking in general about professionalism. Okay. So that's not based on any one thing anybody does. Trust me, this is on the docket to talk about in week 2 of this class every time we do this class. Okay. So that's not, it's not, don't think, oh, he's talking to me, right? I'm talking to everybody. All right. So there's that information. Okay, guys. And then we have some more notes about assignments moving forward. Chef Jackie mentioned some of those, but we'll hit back on some more of that later when we talk about your specific assignment this week. We got a couple of questions up, so I wanted to grab those real quick. Let's see. Let's put her hand up. Brian, your hand's up. How you doing this evening?
So my question is in the assignment for the photos to submit for this week, you have 2 photos. Well, you have 2 sets of photos. You have one for the carrot and one for quartering up the chicken and all that. So in your video, in your watch video on how to quarter up a chicken, you made a comment in it that said, you know, I'm using the chef knife, but would normally do this with a boning knife, so on and so forth. And it's apparently the video was made prior to the message. So what knife would you like to see in that set of pictures? Obviously, you're going to use the chef knife for the carrot, but I'm wondering what your expectation is on that.
Great question. And yes, you nailed it on the head. After we made that video, they go, oh, well, why don't we just start sending the boning knife out in week 1? So if you've received your kit already, which most of you should have at this point, if you don't have your kit by like Friday, please contact student support and get a tracking number so you can find out where that thing is, okay? But yeah, great question. And what I'm going to say, and I think Chef Jackie would probably agree with me, is whichever you're more comfortable with. The boning knife is typically the knife that would be used, right? That's going to be the one with the thinner blade. That's typically the one that would be used for boning out chickens. As you can see in the video, a chef knife is perfectly capable of doing the same thing, and I've broken down many, many, many chickens with just a chef knife. You know, I've worked in some places where, you know, you just pulled your chef knife out of your knife roll, and that's all you used for everything. So I think whichever one you're more comfortable with is totally fine.
Okay.
On the chicken, right? Great point on the carrots. Absolutely the chef knife. But as far as the chicken, if you want to use the boning knife for that, you're more than welcome to.
Right, and obviously, and the other reason I was suspecting that you wanted 2 different pictures of the knife, if you're just to use the chef knife, you obviously want to see a clean knife whenever you retake the picture so you don't cross-contaminate.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's a great point as well. Yes, thank you. I'm sure, I know we had a few people with that question as well, so.
I'm just going to add, since we are discussing, and it came up in the chat, it says we didn't debone that chicken. And no, I don't want a deboned chicken. Right. I want bone in except for the breast. I want boneless breast, bone in everything else. You need
and on everything else too.
Yes, because we're going to use that carcass to make stock in a couple weeks. So you can't, if you leave the bone in the breast, you don't have carcass anymore. So, but I do want legs, thighs, wings, all left bone in.
We're going to grab these questions from Devion and Ashley, and then I'm going to get started talking about this week because I may be answering questions as we get into that. But let's get, I'm going to say Devion. Did I get that right?
Yes.
All right. Yes. Got one.
All right. My question is do you want the breast to be airlined or do you want the bone all the way? I know she wants the bone out of it. I think that was kind of answered. That was my only question. And the second one, with the wing part, I know the wingtip part. Do you want that part like cut off? Because I usually we fabricate the little tip part is sliced off and it's kept with that that junction of that like the little mini drumstick part.
Yes, we're going to go ahead and leave the wings totally intact, and we'll talk about why here in just a little bit. And then the breast, we want to do boneless as well. Yeah.
Okay. No, and with the thighs, do you want the little pearl parts? Do you want those?
Preferably.
Okay.
We'll get there.
Oyster. Yeah.
The oysters.
Yes.
We'll talk about that as well. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, good then. Thank you.
Yeah, you got it.
Hey, Sean, I have a question. This is Samuel.
You're looking into the future. Ashley. So you might have to unmute yourself, Ashley. There we go. You're unmuted. What's that? Yeah.
My thing was glitching. Okay, so I have a question on the how to use the ruler with the carrots and measuring things, period. Because I'm not too sure about the inches and the little lines and everything. I don't know how to read it correctly.
Okay. So what I'll do for that is I will post a graphic in the ask your questions here that breaks it down for you. Because it'll be I can't get the ruler like close enough for it. It gets all out if I try to put that in there. But I'll put a graphic up on the ask your questions here that breaks down the ruler for you. Okay.
Beautiful.
Excellent. Cool. All right. Let's get talking about week number 2, you guys. So this week, last week we did potatoes, and that was fantastic. I hope you, I know it's challenging, absolutely, and it's supposed to be challenging. All right. We absolutely want you to be challenged week to week. If you knew how to do all this stuff, you wouldn't be here, right? So you are going to come across some things that you know how to do and that you've done previously. What's important is that you, for this class, are doing them the way we're asking you to do them. Again, it's not because we don't believe that your way is valid or that your way works. It's because we want to teach you the classic techniques. All right, so that's what we're looking for week to week, is that you guys are executing these assignments the way we've laid them out. And the best way to do that is by making sure you're getting the exact required photos week to week. All right, we'll look into those photos here in just a minute. But another thing that we talked about last week was, we talked about our sanitation solution and how important that was. This week, it is exponentially more important than it was last week. Last week, we were working with raw potatoes. You almost got to try to get somebody sick with raw potatoes, right? Raw chicken, it's very, very easy to get people sick, right? One thing that's important to mention, not all chickens carry salmonella, okay? That's kind of a common misconception that all chickens carry salmonella. However, we do need to operate under the assumption that all chickens carry salmonella, okay? Because you can't tell by looking, you can't tell by smelling, right? You have to send your chicken to a lab and have a chemical test done on it and all that kind of stuff. By then, you really don't want to eat it. So we're just going to assume they all have salmonella. We're going to operate like they have it, okay? Which means it's critical that we are getting that sanitizer solution correct, all right? So as a refresher for that, you're going to take a gallon of water, just barely warm is fine, okay? And you want to add 1 to 2 teaspoons of chlorine bleach, all right? I say 1 to 2 because the amount of chlorine that's already in your tap water is going to vary from location to location, all right? Every municipality puts a slightly different amount of chlorine into their water. So what's important is that your test strip is reading between 50 and 100 parts per million. That's what's critical. So you dip your test strip in that water, you wait a couple of seconds, you pull it out, it's going to turn a grayish color. You put that against that test tube that you got, right? The tube that all the test strips came in, and there's a scale on there of different colors. Try to match yours to the section that's between 50 and 100 parts per million. If it's too light, you need to add a little more bleach. If it's too dark, you need to add some water to dilute it, okay? The easy way to do that, because you're already working with a gallon of water, is to start with a teaspoon of bleach and see where you're at. And then moving forward, you're going to know, oh, mine's a teaspoon and a half, or mine's 2 teaspoons, right? You'll get used to it once you get going. If your test strips have not arrived yet, or if you got an empty tube of test strips, or the kids started playing with them in the bath and they're all wet now, right? Then you could order them on Amazon. That's the quickest and fastest way to get it, unless you have a restaurant supply store in your area, which many of you do, and you don't even know that you do because you've never looked, right? So just Google restaurant supply store, and it'll pop up the closest one to you. Pop over there, and good luck not spending $100, because it like once you get into cooking and you go to a restaurant supply store, you're like, oh my God, so much cool stuff, right? But those test strips should be there. They should only be a couple of bucks, so you want to grab those. If it's absolutely impossible for you to acquire test strips between now and the time you are submitting your week 2 assignment, then you can use those Clorox style wipes, okay, as disinfectant. But we absolutely really need to get those test strips by week 3 at the latest, okay? And again, that's not because those disinfectant wipes won't work. It's because of best practices. When you work in a professional kitchen, you're going to have a bucket of sanitizer solution. You're going to be using a clean towel to dip in that, wring it out, wipe everything down. So we want you having that same muscle memory, that same operation in your home kitchen as well.
There are companies that make a lot of money that come in and set up things like sanitizer solution and mop water and mop chemicals at what is supposed to be proper concentration for your water in your region. Doesn't mean you don't test them with your test strips, you don't have them nearby, but you may not always be dumping bleach into a bucket. But if for whatever reason your dispenser system goes down, I've never worked in a kitchen that didn't have bleach and test strips around just in case. And knowing how to do that is one thing less that you have to worry about when something goes down or something's happening and you end up going, I can't get sanitizer. No, bleach and water. I can make it. I know what concentration it's supposed to be at.
And sometimes your sneaky chemical guy will crank up the solution so you run out of it faster, so you have to buy more. So it's always important that you're testing that sanitizer solution to make sure it's not over the required strength for your local area, which is usually still the 50 to 100 parts per million. Okay, and if you do have that sanitizer solution, you can dilute that with a little bit of water if you need to as well. A couple of questions. Let's grab those real fast. Ashley, I think, was up first. Oh, there we go.
I just want to make sure I did my chicken right.
Okay, we'll take a look at your assignment photos later. Let's talk to everybody else about how to do it. But thank you for working ahead. Misty, what's up?
I didn't use a whole gallon jug or a whole gallon bucket thing. I just used like a Rubbermaid kind of big size bowl for my sanitizer. Is that okay? Do I need the gallon size?
No. Any container you have will work. And if you have a smaller container, then just do the conversion and shrink that down, right? So if it's 1 teaspoon for a gallon, you do a half teaspoon for 2 quarts, right? So if you need to scale it down, that's okay.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Chef Luke, I know Samuel's been waiting to ask a question. He hasn't thrown his hand up in the chat, but he's mentioned, or in the participants, but he has mentioned it in the chat.
Okay.
Okay. Can you hear me, Chef?
Yep.
Okay. My question: when I did potatoes, I didn't know you wanted us to put them like in a cup. So I put them in a cup. But when I took my pictures, I showed each cut like on the cutting board, and that's when I did my pictures. So was that correct too? I took pictures of the potatoes inside a cup, like the full cup and then half a cup. And also I took pictures as well. And I had my area with the cutting board and all my equipment. So was that the correct thing to do, or did you want just like individual picture of each one inside the cup? I was kind of confused. I took pictures of everything.
I'm looking for the list of required photos. The best way for that one, for example, for week 1 is take your ruler, make your cuts. measure it out, pick your best 3 or 4, put them on the ruler, show me that they're consistent. In the same photo, in the measuring cup, measured out to 1 cup amount for your bâtonnet and your small dice. From the top, when you take that picture, I want to look down in and see it. The reason, and we don't ask, for 1 cup just because we want to see you cut 1 cup. I'm also looking to see that you measured 1 cup of potatoes correctly. It seems like it's a little bit ridiculous, but it's just double checking. It's industry standard. When a recipe calls for 1 cup of something, I only want 1 cup for that product. A recipe in the restaurant industry has been costed out and priced to know that you're going to make money. So if recipe calls for 1 cup of potatoes and you put in 3 cups of potatoes, you've now tripled your cost on your potato. If you put in 1/2 cup, well, now your flavor is not going to be correct. So that's really what we're looking for. Hey, look, some great week 1 photo samples.
So this is what that ruler cup photo should look like, right? They've got the ruler, they've got a couple of them showing that they're measured correctly, then they've got the rest in the cup. You got all in one picture.
I use I didn't have a cup like that, so I used a measuring cup, and then also I took once I made my cut, I put it inside the ruler to show that it was the correct measurement, and I took a picture from that way. I didn't know you wanted me to take a picture from over the cup showing the whole cup or 1/2 cup. So I took different pictures and I submitted all of them.
Okay, and that's all right. Like, she can get what you were going for in that, but when you guys have questions about what's required, ask. Just shoot us a note and say, hey, what is this picture supposed to look like? I'll do my best to give you guys some of these. Like, this one was posted right below the actual assignment right here, and it looked like this at the beginning. If I can get it to start over. But it's right here, right? And this goes through the assignment and shows all the required photos. The video does. So I'll try to get you guys some more of those kind of things so you have an idea of what it is we're looking for. But if you're like, I'm not sure what they want, ask. And we will absolutely send you an example or tell you exactly what we're looking for in those pictures.
Okay.
We mentioned it last week. Don't guess.
Right.
And it sounds kind of ridiculous and a little bit high schoolish maybe, or even elementary school. The only bad question is the question you didn't ask.
Yeah.
We don't know what I don't know what you don't know, and I don't know what you don't understand unless you say, hey chef, what is this? What are you trying to get at here? That's what I need you to reach out and ask me on. And then you'll guarantee get your submission in correctly with all the required photos as we expect them to look.
Yeah. Let's grab Brian's question real quick, and then we're gonna move on to this week's technique. What's up, Brian?
All right. So my question is, so I'm still on the road this week and staying in a hotel. I don't know how much longer I'm going to be here. Whenever we go to use the chicken for the whenever it is week 4, whenever we pull it out of the freezer, I'm gonna have to basically redo that assignment because I can't travel with chicken on an airplane from whenever I go to store it in week 2, from whenever we need it in week 4 or 5 or whenever it is. So I'll have to redo that.
Yeah, we'll talk about that as well. Yeah, I'm gonna get to that in a minute. What you can do with all that chicken and how we can handle all that stuff.
Okay.
I got you. All right, sanitation. We're clear, right? Keep your hands washed, keep your counter wiped down, keep your tools clean, right? Another big point in sanitation when you're working with chicken, I know a lot of people do this, and you may or may not have seen the warnings to stop doing it. Stop rinsing off your chicken, okay? Don't take the chicken out of the bag and rinse it underwater. That's gonna splash bacteria all over your kitchen potentially, okay? Even if you got just the water just barely on, it's not splashing, chef, it's still splashing, okay? And that's potential to spread bacteria all over your kitchen. Trust me, when that chicken comes out of the bag, it's fine. Yeah, there's some stuff on it. Don't worry about it. We're gonna wipe that down with some paper towels, okay? More to keep it dry so we can hold on to it, okay? but the stuff that's on your chicken, not a big deal. Okay, we're gonna wipe it down with some paper towels. It's critical that you have mise en place, have everything in its place. Be ready to go when you start this assignment, because every time you touch that chicken, you got to wash your hands before you touch something else. Okay, so make sure the dog's been out for a walk. Make sure the kids are put down in front of an episode of Bubble Guppies or whatever it takes to be ready to buckle down on this assignment once you start, because you want to start to finish. So that means clean knife right there, handy dandy. That means have all your bags, your storage bags for your chicken ready to go. Okay, have them popped open, and I even roll that collar over a little bit so that I don't get raw chicken on the zipper part, right? Pop the collar over a little bit, invert it, so that you can put that chicken in, then put the collar and close it, okay? Go ahead and label your bags as well, all right? It's much easier to write on a flat, dry bag on the countertop than it is to write on one that's got a chicken thigh inside of it, okay? So go ahead and label chicken thigh with the date, right, on there. We'll talk about why that's important as well, but have everything ready. Chicken on your cutting board. Wipe it down with paper towels. Take out the stuff that's on the inside if there's stuff on the inside. If there's giblets and you want to turn that into giblet gravy or something, go for it. It's all yours. Enjoy. If there's a neck, put that aside to save with the carcass, okay, because that's going to go great in your stock in a couple of weeks, all right? Now we've got a chicken. It's empty. It's patted dry. It's ready to go. All right. It's critical that you guys watch the video on how to break down a chicken. All right. We've got one provided for you on the class page. I highly encourage you to check that out. You can also get on YouTube. But when you're watching videos on YouTube,
yes, shut the hell.
It is critical. Oh, that was close, wasn't it? It is critical that you are watching videos from reliable sources. Don't watch a video like Billy breaks down a chicken, right? I don't know who Billy is. We don't know if Billy's doing that right. That may end in Billy slicing his hand open. And that is not how we want to learn to do things, right? If you're going to watch videos on YouTube for cooking stuff as an additional resource to the ones we've provided you guys, look at things like French Culinary Institute, Culinary Institute of America. If you want to look at celebrities doing it, choose celebrities like Thomas Keller, Gordon Ramsay. I know he's a TV celebrity, but he knows what he's doing. Those guys are who you want to look at. Jacques Pepin, a great resource for how to do classic French techniques as well. If you're unsure as to whether a video works, right? Chef, are they doing this right? Send me the link. I'll watch it, and I'll tell you if they are or if they're not. Okay? Different people break down chickens different ways. Eventually, you'll find the way that's right for you. If you've never done it before, I recommend you do it the way we did it in the technique video. Okay? If you have your own way of breaking down a chicken, you still need to end up with the required pieces that we're asking for. Okay? You still need to end up with 2 breasts, boneless, skin on, 3 thighs, skin on, 2 drumsticks, a carcass, and wings. Okay? However you break it down, that's what you need to end up with. It's important to know how to break down a chicken for a few different reasons. The most important reason is because it's cost effective. If you go to the chicken section of your grocery store and you look at all the different cuts of chicken, look at not the total price, but the price per pound that's listed on there, okay? And I bet you dollars to donuts, that price per pound, do you guys hear that noise? My neighbor's running a motorcycle or something. Sorry. Anyway, I just want to make sure you guys can still hear me. I bet you dollars to donuts, that price per pound on the whole chicken is one of, if not the lowest prices per pound. Why is that? That is because that chicken has been processed less than all the other cuts in the case, right? It's just chicken, right? They didn't debone anything. They didn't take any skin off. They didn't have to cut it into different parts. They didn't have to get 4 of them to make a package of it, right? None of that had to happen. That's just a plucked and clean chicken. Dunzo. That gets you the cheapest price per pound. That's important as a home cook because you can save some money, right? I get one chicken and I can feed myself, my wife, and my 2 kids like 3 or 4 meals out of that thing, right? For one like $6 chicken. Split $6 over 4 meals, that's $1.50 a meal just for the protein, right? That's a deal to feed a family of 4, right? Obviously, if you've got bigger kids or you've got a bigger family, that one chicken's not going to cut it, but you're still getting that cut it. You're still getting that cheapest price per pound. Okay. The other reason, and that's important in the professional setting as well, because if we've got a chicken breast on the menu and we've got maybe some fried dark meat on the menu and we've got maybe a chicken soup on the menu, you can buy one chicken and get 2 plates of each of those, right? Plus we got the wings. Plus we're taking the carcass and turning that into stock. So we can save money that way. By doing a little more work ourselves, we can save money in the long run, okay? The other reason it's important to know how to break down a whole chicken is because you control what those chicken pieces look like, right? We've talked about different ways that can be done. When you break down a breast, you know, you can, you guys heard, I think it was Samuel mention it. Was that Samuel? So who mentioned the airline? Somebody mentioned the airline cut earlier. That's a chicken breast with part of the wing still attached to it. A very classic old school French technique that you could do if you wanted to do it. Or you could take that breast off and boneless, skinless. You could do that breast, you could just crack the whole carcass in half and keep the ribs on there. Bone in chicken breast, skin on, right? That's all just versions of just the chicken breast. You could do thighs, bone in, skin on, bone in, skin off, boneless, skinless, boneless, skin on, right? When you take the whole chicken and you know how to break it down, your options are endless for what you can do with that chicken. So having that much control over your end product is a great skill to have as a chef, all right? And it's going to make you a more versatile home cook as well when you can take those little bits and pieces and do what you want with them. So that's why it's important to know how to do this, okay? When you go to break down the chicken, you're going to set it in front of you. You know, we've got the carcass is empty. We've got it patted down nice and dry, and we're ready to work. It's important to remember that you're the one in charge. The chicken is not in charge. You are in charge. Don't be afraid of the chicken. The chicken's already dead. It's not coming at you. Okay? A lot of people are like, I'm afraid of the chicken. Chicken's already dead. Can't do anything to you, all right? It's on your cutting board. It's in your house. You're running the show. So while you're breaking down this chicken, your stance, we didn't talk much about your stance, at the cutting board last week. We had so much to cover. It's important that your feet are about shoulder width apart, right? You got a nice good base. It's important that you're working at a countertop that is around your waist height, okay? I know we're all different heights, so that's gonna vary a little bit, but you want it to be comfortable, right? We don't wanna be working like on a bar top where you're up here. You're gonna get tired real fast and you don't have a lot of control. You don't wanna be working like at your kitchen table because then you're gonna be bent over like this, and trust me, your back's gonna tell you you don't wanna be doing that very much longer, right? Countertop, where we're about waist height. That's gonna be the comfortable place for your arms to hang, right? When you're working with that chicken and you need to cut a different part of it, turn the chicken. Don't turn your body. Don't you turn to get where you need to get. Oh, I need to get this piece on. No, that's too much work. Turn the chicken. Much easier to turn the chicken the angle you need it to be at to do what you need to do. All right. Conservation of motion is one of my most favorite principles in the kitchen. Right? Don't take 2 steps when 1 will do. Right? Put everything within arm's reach. That's why mise en place is so important. Right? It saves you. You work a little harder up front to save time down the road. Be as efficient as possible. Right? People ask, how do I get faster, chef? How do I get faster? How do I get faster? Slow down.
Take your time.
Take your time. Because that is going to make you more focused on what you're doing, and it's going to greatly reduce the chance that you're going to mess something up and have to start all over. Okay? You might be able to break down a chicken in 15 seconds, but if you cut your finger in that process and bleed all over that chicken, now that chicken's got to go in the trash. That's money in the trash. And it's not how much that chicken cost. It's how much you could have sold that chicken for. That's how much money you're losing. Okay? Then you got to go clean your cut. You got to get a bandage. You got to clean your cut. Now we're going to go to another chicken. We're going to start the whole process over, right? But had you slowed down and taken, 2 minutes to break down that chicken, you would have saved yourself tons of time and tons of money just by slowing down. All right? So slow down, pay attention. All right, we got that chicken in front of us now, right? Its feet are pointed toward you. I go straight down that. There's a lot of different schools, right? You could take the skin between the breast and the leg quarters and take the legs off if you want, or you could go straight down that keel bone. The keel bone is the sternum, right, between the two breasts. Straight down that. Now, when you go to cut down that, you're going to cheat one side or the other, right or left, just automatically. Just happens. And then you're going to work your way using long strokes with the tip of the knife to slowly peel that chicken breast off the meat. Or off the bone. We want to leave as little meat on the bone as possible. I forgot about the wishbone, didn't I? I take out the wishbone. Not everybody takes out the wishbone. I like to take out the wishbone. So spin that chicken toward you, where its neck was, right? Feel that right at the top of the breast, right? The wishbone is the collarbone. So think about it that way, right? Feel in there for that bone. Where you feel it, make a cut on either side of it, and then just reach in there with your finger and pull it out. If it pops out in 2 pieces, that's fine, no big deal. That's going in your bone pile for your carcass. Now we can take that breast off, right? Go right down that keel bone, long, thin strokes. Push the knife against the bone, kind of, while you're going down it, right? And that's going to make sure that the knife tip is all the way against that bone, and we're only peeling the meat off the bone, is what we want to do. Work your way through there, and then eventually you'll get to where that's just hanging by a piece of skin. Take off that piece of skin. Do it on the other side. Now you got 2 breasts. Boom, off. Now take your legs. This is where it gets a little, some people, if you're not really into the whole, chicken, it's fine, right? If you're a little squeamish, this is the part you got to get over, all right? You're going to grab that leg right where the thigh meets the carcass. That's the hip, right? Hip joint. You're going to hold the carcass, hold the thigh, and break that hip joint till it pops. It's going to pop. You're going to feel it pop. Because we need that tendon released to be able to get that leg piece off. Okay? And when I keep saying leg, I'm talking about the thigh and the leg together, right? It's a leg quarter. That's the whole leg. All right? We often call the drumstick just the legs, but that's really just the knee down. Okay? Then you're going to work your knife across. We had the question earlier about the oyster. Okay? The oyster is, if you breast up on the chicken, it's on the underside of the chicken. It's right where the thigh meets that hip. I mean, if we're going to get technical, it's the gluteus maximus of the chicken, all right? It's the best piece on the entire chicken. So when we're removing that thigh from the carcass, we want to try to get up in there and get that out. It's not the end of the world if you don't get it out of there, okay? It takes a lot of practice. It's not something we focused on in the technique video. Because it takes practice to really be able to get that whole thing out of there. And I don't want you guys like stressing and spending tons of time trying to get the oyster off of there. All right. If it comes off, that's great. Okay. You'll follow your knife right down between the carcass and the leg quarter. At one point, you'll have to really push down on that knife to pop that leg off. All right. When you're cutting that ball joint, right where that thigh goes into the carcass, right? You're really going to have to cut to separate. We broke that tendon. Now we got to cut that tendon. All right, so you really got to get in there. And you'll do that on the other side. Take the other leg quarter off. Now you get the leg quarter. It's an L shape. Again, with your finger, feel in there where that thigh connects to that drumstick. And you can just run your knife right down the middle of that and separate those two. That's another thing. It takes a little bit of feel and practice. You might nip off the end of the drumstick or the end of the thigh, and that's okay. Again, you're learning how to do this, and that's all right. The wings, if you want to take them off the carcass, you can, or you can leave them on because that's all going into the stock in week number 5. All right. So that's 2 breasts, that's 2 thighs, 2 drumsticks, a carcass with wings.
And a
What else?
wishbone, maybe.
And a wishbone, maybe.
Now, one thing you do want to do is, I know it's not easy. You want to avoid sort of forcing through when you're separating, legs and thighs or the thigh from the carcass. You want to avoid, forcing your knife through the whole bone. Really look and find where that joint separation is. You might take a little bit off of that ball joint, no big deal, but you don't want to hack through the bone. You end up with bone shards. You don't want anything like that. With that,
Also not great for your knife.
yeah, not good for the knife, especially not that. For where Chef Luke talked about the leg and thigh joint, when I first learned how, this is how I remembered and can find it. If you pull them straight up and smooth it down, typically where that color changes on the skin, and you'll see a little indentation, that's right where your joint's at. I mean, if you look at your knee or your elbow, your wrist, it comes in a little bit. They do the same thing. And you can see just sort of where that knife needs to go. So that's another way to try and prevent. I also, just like I separate the hip joint, I separate the leg and thigh joint as well. I just go ahead and pop them. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so we're trying to keep the skin on all these because we want to give you guys the most opportunity for options later on. Now, we've got you guys bagging up all of these pieces of chicken, right? You're bagging up the breasts individually. You're bagging up the thighs, you're bagging up the legs, you're bagging up the carcass and wings. Again, if you got a wishbone and you got a neck bone, put that in with the carcass and wings. Now, the reason we're having you guys bag these up is for a few reasons, okay? First, it's the most common practice in a professional kitchen. When you're breaking down whole chickens, you separate them by pieces. Now, you're not going to do one chicken, you're probably going to do 20 chickens, right? So all the breasts will go together, all the thighs will go together, all the legs will go together, all the carcasses will go together, all the wings will go together, right? And the reason we do that is because we may not need them all right now, or we may need to wait until we get enough of them to do something with, right? So it's important that you are doing the storage process correctly. When you put the chicken in the bag, you go to close it up, close it all the way, but like an inch, and press as much air out of that bag as you can. And then do that final little zip. Getting the air out of there will help us prevent any ice crystallization from forming on your chicken, right? If there's air in there, that means there's moisture in there, and that moisture will crystallize around the chicken, commonly referred to as freezer burn. Really, it's just ice, y'all. It's fine. It's frozen water. But we want to avoid that if we can, right? Because if you do let that ice crystallization happen, then you go to thaw that chicken in the bag, then you get water in the bag, then your chicken starts to absorb some water and affects the flavor and all that kind of stuff. So if we can avoid that, we will. We do get asked on occasion if you can use a vacuum sealer. If you have a vacuum sealer, you are welcome to vacuum seal your chicken pieces. I'm not saying go out and buy a vacuum sealer for this week, okay? If you already have one and you know how to use it, you can vacuum seal your chicken. Putting them in a freezer bag and pressing out as much air as possible will work absolutely fine for our purposes, all right? It's important that you label and date these, okay? Like I mentioned, label and date your bag first. If you don't label and date the bag first, you can still label it. It's just harder to do, right? That's why I say do it first, okay? The reason we label and date is because that's another industry standard. When you go into a professional kitchen, if they're doing everything right, everything in the cooler and the reach-ins, even the dry storage, will probably have a piece of tape or some kind of label on it that says what it is and when it was put in that container, okay? That's critical. What's that?
I'm going to add, and a lot of places also have you initial what you labeled, because then if you labeled it wrong, they're going to come. It's a learning experience first, and then it might be a discipline issue, but label, date, and initial. If you work in the industry now and you've ever seen like a sticker that's made to label things, most of them have a place for your initials already built in.
Yeah.
Get into the habit.
Get into the habit because that's a professional standard, okay? It's important because sometimes things get buried in the freezer or they get stuck in the back of the fridge, right? And if we go, oh, hey, here's that piece of chicken in the freezer. Oh, it's from a year ago. We should probably toss that one, right? Oh, it's only from a month ago. Then it's fine. It's been in the freezer. But when you're talking about things that are going in the refrigerator, You know, some things are good for 3 days. Some things are good for 7 days. Some things are good for a month. Depends on what it is, and those are the kind of things you'll learn going through the process of working in a professional kitchen. But in our case, we want that labeled and dated for, again, best practices. The other reason, aside from industry best practices, that we're having you guys bag up and freeze these chicken pieces is so that you can, if you want to, down the road, use these pieces to save you some money in this class, okay? In week number 5, we're making chicken stock. You can use the carcass and wings and neck and wishbone to make chicken stock, okay? And that's fantastic, all right? In week 6, we're gonna poach. So you can use the chicken breast to poach. In week 7, we're gonna saute, again, chicken breast. In week 8, we're gonna deep fry. Hello, drumsticks. In week 9, we're gonna braise thighs, right? So that's 5 weeks of this class that you can do with one chicken, right? So that also teaches you the versatility of the chicken in a professional kitchen and in your home kitchen. Now, here's the thing. Once we get into that 6, 7, 8, 9, that poach, saute, deep fry, braise, you will be given the option to use alternate proteins. So if you are cool buying alternate proteins down the road in those classes, you know, if you want to poach fish and you want to saute a pork chop and you want to deep fry shrimp and you want to braise beef, great. You're going to have to buy those things. But if you're okay doing that, then once you've got your photos of the chicken bagged up, you're welcome to use it this week if you want, in whatever it is you want to use it in. So that was your question, Brian, from earlier, right? We're not going to make you like go buy a bunch of dry ice and a super cooler to carry frozen chicken across the country. Go ahead and eat it because you're not going to be able to keep it for those later assignments. But in those later assignments, you will have to pick up some proteins to make up for not having kept that chicken. Okay? So that's where that stands. All right? And we'll talk about pulling that stuff out of the freezer and using it when we get into those weeks when we're ready for it. In week 5, I'll go, who's got their chicken carcasses in the freezer, right? And we'll break it down like that from week to week. And that's the chicken breakdown. It's a super great skill to have. Like I said, it can save you a ton of money, but it can also offer you a lot of creative options as both a home cook and a chef. And we'll talk about the carrots real quick in just a second. Chef Jackie, did you have something that you were gonna?
Yeah, I'm gonna add this now because it's gonna come up, and I'm just gonna mention it. Narrative. It's been asked a few times in the chat. I only want one. One narrative every week that covers everything on it. I don't want to see 2, 3, 4 narratives. One narrative every week. Chicken breakdown. Even if you're gonna, I hate to say it, if you're gonna immediately cut that chicken up and then you want to cook it, you still have to bag it and label it. There is no getting out of
photos.
Yeah, there is no getting out of that step in that photo. You have to do it. That's why I would, unless you're absolutely going to cook it for dinner, bag it, label it, freeze it, and save it for later on, even later on down the road this week, so then you don't feel like you're throwing out 8 bags. But you absolutely have to bag and I'll bag and tag it. It has to be labeled. It has to be bagged up.
Yeah. It's the easiest way to ensure you are getting full credit for the assignments is getting the required photos every single week. What's up, Brian?
So I can't remember if I asked this question earlier and then in the class introduction in the previous weeks, but I was gonna ask the makeup assignment. So I think there's 4 makeup assignment numbers. What? 3? 3, okay.
No, Brian, none of you guys need to worry about makeup assignments unless you hear from me.
Okay.
If you hear from me, then you'll know what to do with those makeup assignments. Otherwise, it's a ghost in the wind.
Not there.
All right. Thank you.
Pretend they're not there. The goal is not to use the makeup assignment just because. The goal is to not need the makeup assignment.
Exactly.
You don't want to use it. If you don't have to, don't use it.
Don't turn in a makeup assignment unless you've been told to do so and told how to do it, because it will not help. let's talk about carrots real fast. This week you are doing 2 kinds of carrots. You are doing both the oblique cut and the paysan cut, however you want to say it, get as fancy as you like. It's the same cut. Be careful when you go look, like if you go to Google paysan cut, that technically is a tile cut, which can come in many shapes. However, we are requiring a very specific shape on the paysan cut. We want 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch by 1/8 of an inch. Okay, listed right there on the required photos. Chef, how do I cut a carrot into perfect little square tiles? Well, I'll tell you. A, you can watch the technique video where we did it. B, here's the quick rundown. First, a little trick. Set your carrots out on the countertop for about 1/2 hour to an hour if they're cold. All right? Cold carrots, when you try to cut into a straight line, are going to curl. All right? Aha, leave them out on the countertop. They'll soften up a little bit and they won't curl as much when you go to cut them. Okay, so that's going to help you with those straight lines. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is peel our carrot. Okay, first thing we're going to do is wash our carrot, then we're going to peel it, right? Chef, I'm going to peel it anyway. Do I have to wash it? Yes, you do. Because when you run that peeler down a dirty carrot, you're just pulling dirt down that beautiful inside under the peel. Okay, so wash the carrot first, then peel the carrot. All right, then we're going to take that carrot. You can take the fat end of the carrot, put it up against your ruler, okay? And you're going to cut one long straight side, all right? Now, we roll that onto its flat side, line that carrot up to the 0 mark on your ruler, and make a long straight cut. Now, our long oblong carrot, right, was round, but now it's got 2 straight sides. Oh, does this sound familiar? Right, okay. Now, roll it onto that flat side, make another long straight cut where it measures 1/2 inch wide, okay? And you roll it over, you line a straight side up, make another cut where it measures 1/2 inch. So now on the fat end of your carrot, it should be 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch. Okay? So you got that nice square end on the fat side, and then the carrot's going to taper off. Where that carrot tapers below 1/2 inch, that's where you cut. And that piece is snacks. Okay? Now we have a beautiful 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch rectangle carrot, right? Okay, so we take that rectangle carrot, we line it up against our ruler, we go to the 1/8 inch mark, and we make a cut. You'll notice in the technique video, now's where you start to learn some tips and tricks, okay? When you make that first cut, instead of lining that carrot up and making every 1/8 inch cut every single time, when you make that first cut, if it's that perfect 1/8 inch thick, it's going to stick to your knife, right? It's going to stick to the knife blade. So then you run your knife just a little bit until that piece that's stuck to the knife matches the end, and make another cut. And then do it again and again and again and again and again and again and again, all the way down that carrot until you have a 1/2 cup of paysan tile cuts. It's probably going to take like 3 or 4 carrots to get that done, at least. Okay? But that's where you start to pick up those little tricks on being a little more efficient, right? As long as I know I did that first one right, I can use that now as my guide and work all the way down the carrot and get all those perfect little squares, okay? These look beautiful in a soup. They're fantastic in a pasta. You could saute them if you want. Whatever you want to do with those carrots once you've got your photo, totally up to you. The second cut we're going to be doing is the oblique cut. The oblique cut is a little more of a workhorse. It's not quite as pretty. We're not going to be measuring anything. Yay, right?
But
it's not like just cut it up however you want, right? There's still a technique here, and there's a reason behind the technique. We're going to wash our carrots. We're going to peel our carrots. Take off just the very tiny end part of that. And, you know, if there's a little root on it, you know, you can still eat it. Throw it in the soup, whatever you want. Now we've got that carrot, right? It's like this. We get that one end lopped off. You're going to have that carrot, you know, long ways perpendicular to you, right? You're going to take your knife at about a 45-degree angle-ish, right? Don't break out a protractor or anything, but about a 45-degree angle, and make that first cut. That first cut is critical, and here's why. Whatever size that first piece ends up being, is about the same size that you want the rest of the pieces to be. Okay? The oblique cut is a cut that's used because we want to use all the carrot. Now remember when we did that paysan cut, we had to cut where it started to taper, and that we'll use for something else, but we now can't use the whole carrot. And we lopped off those long sides. We got to figure out what to do with those as well. With the oblique cut, we're able to use almost 100% of the carrot after it's been peeled and we knock that little piece off. We cut that first cut at about 45 degrees, and that's going to give us a size, not a shape, not a measurement, but a relative size. Okay? Take your carrot, rotate it 180 degrees, and make another 45-degree cut so that the second piece is about the same size as the first piece. Okay? Not going to be the same shape. They're both going to be crazy wonky shapes, but they can still be about the same size. You're going to rotate your carrot again, make another cut. So cut 3, piece 3 is about the same size as pieces 1 and 2. And we're going to continue doing that. We're going to roll the carrot, cut the carrot, roll the carrot, cut the carrot, roll the carrot, cut the carrot. As you get closer to that fat end of the carrot, you're going to roll the carrot a little bit less. You're not going to go the full 180 degrees. And at one point, you're eventually just going to be lopping off seemingly random chunks of carrot. But once you're finished, all your pieces of carrot should be about the same size. That's what we're looking for. There's no specific measurement. There's no size, specific size. About the same size as each other is what we're looking for. It's not as pretty of a cut, obviously, because they're kind of random, but it serves a lot of good purposes. One, you're going to use this cut again in a later assignment for a dish called carrots vichy. And the reason it's important that they're all the same size is that they cook uniformly. All right? We don't want to have some crunchy carrots and some mushy carrots. We want them all to be the same texture. And if they're all the same size, that gets us there. Another great use for this cut is when you're making something like stock, or if you're going to make a puree or you're going to make a soup. Having them all the same size helps them cook evenly and ensures that they're all the same doneness by the time you're finished. Now, we talked about required photos. Like Chef Jackie said, even if you're going to use that chicken right away, you still got to bag it up, because that's a required photo. Here, and it used to bug me all the time when my instructors would pull this card, but it's because it's school and you have to, right? And again, it's not about when are you going to use this and that kind of stuff. You have to remember that as much as we want you to incorporate this stuff into your daily life so that it's not like a cost on top of what you're already buying, right? At the end of the day, you're here to learn techniques and you're here to learn best practices. So it's critical that you're doing everything we're requiring you to do. And that is to meet those best practices and to prepare you for how things are done in professional kitchens. All right. So that's why these required photos are here. These critical points are how Chef Jackie can tell if you're doing things with correct technique.
Chef Luke, while you have this open, the only way you can get out of, 19 photos is if you do your chicken fabrication and your knife skills at the same time and you submit one self-ID photo and one sanitizer photo. So you can have 17 photos or 19 photos, but no less than that.
Correct. A lot of people have asked, Chef, the ID photo and the sanitizer bucket are on there twice. That's correct. You do not have to stand at your counter and cut all your carrots and do all your chicken. If you want to do your carrots tomorrow and your chicken the next day, you absolutely can do that. Okay? But you must put a new ID photo and a new sanitizer bucket photo. Okay? Because every day, every time you step into the kitchen to do an assignment for this school, you need to be in your full uniform. You need to be holding a piece of paper or make a sign or use a whiteboard, whatever it takes to show us the date and the week. Okay? Week 2, August 29th, right? However you want to do that. If you want to get crazy creative with it, great. I love it. Chef Jackie, I'm sure, loves the variety when people mix it up with their dates and times and stuff like that. If you want to hold up a newspaper right? Like you're in a ransom photo or something. Sure. Okay. Show us the date and the week. Okay. Because you have to submit a brand new ID photo every time you do a new technique. You can't just use week 1 over and over again. Trust me, Chef Jackie will figure out that you're trying to do that. She knows all the tricks. All right. New ID photo every time you step into an assignment. Okay. Now, if you do go do all your carrots first, then do your chicken, and that's the order I'd recommend you do it: carrots, then chicken, if you're doing it all together. That way we eliminate the possibility of cross-contamination. Then 1 ID photo and 1 sanitizer bucket is fine. Okay. Sanitizer bucket at the end of a project, especially at the end of something like cutting raw chicken, that sanitizer needs to go down the drain. That sanitizer bucket needs to get washed, and that sanitizer towel needs to go through the wash. All right. New bucket, new towel every time you step in the kitchen. Just because it's bleach water doesn't mean it's sanitized forever. All right. You're dipping bacteria in it every time you put the towel in there. So it needs to be new every time. Okay. Unless you're doing this all in one session. Here's that narrative reflection sheet. Make sure you make a copy of that. If you're doing this on your phone, you may have to also download the Google Docs app so that you can fill out the narrative sheet. Okay. That's a little tip on that as well. All right. The other thing I want to talk about real quick, again, I know we're over time. Trust me, guys. I promised you last week, but I promise, as we move forward, we will hit that 1 hour mark on these things. There's just still so much to talk about here in the beginning. We'll tighten it up. By week 12, we'll have it down to a clean hour. Okay. You have a discussion forum this week. Okay. Remember, those discussion forums are a hefty part of your grade, especially in this first 4 weeks when you must be passing this class. Right. Think about this first 4 weeks. We have 4 knowledge checks, 2 discussion forums, and 4 assignments. That's not very much. So think about how much weight these discussion forums are going to carry, especially in your conditional enrollment grade. Okay. But more importantly, it's great to have these discussions. You guys don't get to really meet each other in this online world. So getting to share some experience in the discussion forum is a great way to build some camaraderie with your class. All right. This week, what you're going to do is watch this video. All right. It's a video. I'm sorry that you have to watch it, but it's important that you do watch it. It's real gross. Okay. It's not like gory, gag, gross, but this guy commits an unspeakable amount of sanitation errors throughout the process. I see some heads nodding. You people have seen it. I see the shock on your face from having had to have watched it. I can't even watch it anymore myself. Okay. But this guy's going to commit a bunch of sanitation errors. If it helps at all, it's all on purpose. It doesn't help me, but maybe that helps you a little bit. It's all on purpose for your learning. And what you're going to do is watch this video, and you are going to tell us what you think is the single worst sanitation mistake this guy made. Okay? And why. We've already started talking about why. The why is so important. We will continue to talk about why the why is so important. Look, are any of these sanitation mistakes worse than the next? No, they're all awful. All right? But in your opinion, one may be worse than the other. Okay? But just saying that doesn't carry any weight. If you tell me why you think it's the worst, you may be able to convince me that you picked the worst one. Why is so important. Okay? Here in this first discussion forum in week number 2, you are not required to reply to any of your classmates. I encourage it because it gets the discussion going, right? Somebody will say the raw chicken part was the worst, or somebody will say when he pets his dog, that's the worst part, right? Yeah, there's a dog. It's gonna get all kinds of weird, guys. But the why is what's important. And you guys, I'll see the discussion start happening like, oh, that is worse than the one I picked. Oh, like, oh, no, I think mine's worse, right? And you go back and forth, and that's fine, right? Everybody's going to be cool. Everybody's always super nice in these replies and stuff, so don't worry about it. But this does have to be done before next Tuesday, all right, for you to be able to get full credit. So please make sure you do it. A bunch of people have already got it. All your classmates are already in there working on it. That's great. I love it. You will get messages from me reminding you to do it. because it is an important part of your grade. All right. When you do that initial post, it takes like 5 or 10 minutes before you can see your classmates' posts. So don't freak out if you don't see posts immediately. Do your post, hit submit, go grab a drink of water or something, and then come back, and then you can start looking at your classmates' posts.
And Chef Luke, I do want to add, there was a question that came up, how do you post? So you don't post a new thread. You don't have to, add anything. You reply to that first discussion that Chef Luke shares that goes through what the directions are. You hit reply. It's usually in the bottom right underneath the box, and you go from there. You're not adding to the thread. You're not putting anything new in. It's just a reply, not an ad or anything like that.
So let me show you real quick. I'll show you how to get to that again real fast. Go back to the class page. Here we are in week number 2. Click on sanitation mistakes video. And that'll open the discussion forum. Here you can watch the video from that link. And then down here, I'm not in a group because I'm not like registered in this class as a student. But right here is where you'll see the forum. You can just click on that and it'll open up and it'll have this question again, but it'll look like it was posted by me, right? And then in the bottom right-hand corner of that, there's a little thing that says reply. You click on that and then you post your reply. So your initial post is a reply to my post. Is that it? And you guys did this in orientation as well with like to introduce yourself, that kind of stuff. So once you get in there, knock the rust off and it'll come back to you. If you're still unsure, ask. Don't try to figure it out from here until next Tuesday, right? Ask. If you guys try to do anything for more than like 5 or 10 minutes, please reach out. Send me a message, send Chef Jackie a message. If we can't answer your question, we'll point you in the direction of somebody who can. We may send you a tutorial video that shows you how to do it, but we will get you the answer if you ask, all right? Don't say like, I've been trying to do this for 4 days. And I'll be like, why didn't you send me a message 4 days ago, right? Ask questions. Make it easy on yourself, all right? Somebody did say, I'm sorry to bother you this week. That's what they pay me for, is for you guys to bother me, okay? Send me emails, send me text messages. Those are the quickest way to get those answers, okay? With the emails, it's much easier for me to send you back like links and stuff, especially for like tutorial videos and that kind of stuff. So that one's a little easier for that specific type of questions. And then my text tool has been wonky. I keep getting froze out because I'm sending too many text messages. So if you send me a message and I don't answer text, check your email because I can see your text message. I may not be able to reply to it until I get that thing figured out. But the general spirit is the same. Ask, 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 ask. As soon as you got that question, right? I mean, look for a second, because sometimes people like send me a question and then a minute later they're like, I found it, right? Look for a second. and then if you can't find it, then ask. And we'll show you how to get to it and we're happy to answer your questions. We want to make sure you're successful in this program, okay? We want to come eat at your restaurants and hire your catering companies. So we want you doing everything the right way. We want you getting as much of this knowledge as possible so that you're successful in this class, in this program, and in this industry, all right? What was very important to me when I was a working chef in a kitchen was teaching people how to do things the right way. It's very, I don't get those chefs who try to keep everything a secret and I won't tell you how to do that. Why not, man? What's the skin off your back if everybody knows how to do everything you know how to do? I want everybody to know how to do everything I want to know how to do because I want to know how to do everything you know how to do, right? If you're the best version of yourself, then you're the best version of yourself for me. Like if we think about this in a working kitchen, right? If I teach all my cooks everything I know and they're as good as I am, then how good does that make me look, right? But also when you go work somewhere else and they go, wow, you know so much. Where did you learn how to do that? And you go, I learned all this from Chef Luke. They're going to go, wow, that's Chef Luke. That's what he's talking about, right? It's important for me that you know as much as you want to know, okay? So if you're going through these assignments and you're like, I got this, I've done this 1,000 times, let's kick it up a notch, all right? Shoot me a message. Shoot Chef Jackie a message. We'll kick it up a notch. You want a challenge? Ask for one. But I'm not going to send you challenges if you're not asking for it. I can't answer your questions if you're not asking me questions. I can't give you advice if you don't ask for advice. Same goes with situations. If you are dealing with a specific situation, you don't know how to handle it, right? How do I navigate going on vacation with school? How do I navigate, I'm in a hotel all the time. How do I do that with school, right? Whatever your situation is, ask us. I promise you, there are very, very few scenarios we have not already encountered. Okay? Chef Jackie, anything else for this evening?
2 things. Watch feedback. Feedback. Watch feedback. Watch your feedback. Multiple times if you need to.
When Chef Jackie grades your assignment, you will get an email that says, Chef Jackie has left feedback on your assignment. Click on that email and watch the video in that email. She tells you all the areas you have for improvement or what you did that was awesome or both.
Yes. Watch that. If you watch it and I say, hey, I need to see this, think about this, resubmit with this, resubmit it. You have, once you've submitted the first time, preferably on time or at least in the late period, which is until tomorrow night if you haven't submitted week 1 yet, you will have until next Tuesday to resubmit. Take advantage. If you're not happy with your grade, resubmit. Now, I am going to put a little caveat on that. Don't resubmit if you have a 95.
Yeah.
I know why. If you're chasing that 100, I get it. But in the long run, not going to make a difference. Really not.
In the long run, it's not worth your time. Here's the deal. At the end of the class, we're going to have an opportunity for extra credit. So all those like 95s and 97s that are like making you itch, right? Those will get taken care of with extra credit at the end of the class. Okay? Those are not worth your time. Focus your energy on next week, right? If you got a 97, don't go cut up 5 more pounds of potatoes so that you can get 100. Focus on your chicken and your carrots. You'll make up those points in the long run.
And then my other thing, feedback, resubmit. And I know we mention it, and I know for certain people, there's certain situations you have to work ahead. You have to get it done before the live session. You're going out of town. You know, your work schedule doesn't allow you to wait. But try to wait until after the live session, especially after this week. We give tips, tricks, hints, modifications, additions, suggestions, all kinds of things during that live session. Yeah. I'm all about working ahead, except for when you're going to end up doing extra work because you worked ahead and then we gave you a better suggestion or more in tune to what we are looking for technique-wise. And we will always address technique, not recipes. We're not looking at recipes. We're looking at technique.
But we will tell you how you can modify the recipes if you need to ensure that you're still executing the technique. Especially once we start cooking food and we start getting into dietary restrictions and financial restrictions and all that kind of stuff, we're going to walk through all this stuff step by step, right? Just like you guys saw tonight. Some people had some questions at the beginning of the session, and we answer those questions throughout the session. So the live sessions or the recordings, for those of you watching the recordings, are the absolute most important resource to executing your assignments correctly and making sure that you're getting everything done every week. Which reminds me, check boxes, right? You guys may have noticed some of those check boxes. I get green checks, I get red X's. Don't sweat the checks, okay? If you're doing everything you're supposed to be doing, and we will let you know if you're not, if you're doing everything you're supposed to be doing, don't worry about the check boxes. You'll be just fine, okay? I see some hands up, but we're going to cut the recording because last week we went super long. If you have questions specifically about your grades on assignments and your assignment specifically, reach out to Chef Jackie because she's the person that can answer those questions about your specific assignments. If you have questions about the program in general or this upcoming assignment, you're wondering how to do stuff, the industry in general, or you get a life situation, you need somebody to talk you through navigating school with that, reach out to me. If you've got, excuse me, technical issues with your device or our website, contact the support team. Their information is at the bottom of every single class page or every single page on our website. Okay. Again, reach out and ask if you have issues. We need to know what those are before we can help you. Please do not wait until Tuesday to start your assignment. Okay. If you're trying to break down a chicken at 10 o'clock next Tuesday, things went wrong somewhere. Okay. Start these assignments earlier, because trust me when I tell you, they are going to ramp up week to week to week to week to week. It's critical that you are carving out time in your week, preferably at latest Sunday. Sunday is the latest possible time you should be starting assignments. Okay. This week we had like 100 people turn in their stuff before Sunday. That's awesome. Keep it up. Keep doing that, and you're going to be A-okay in this program. All right. Do not wait, because trust me when I tell you that these are going to get more time consuming and more challenging as we go. Next week, rice and beans, but we got to soak beans overnight. Week after that, fresca pasta. Week after that, you're making chicken stock, minestrone soup, and velouté sauce, right? And then it ramps up from there, okay? We're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to learn a lot, but we're also going to work very hard. So it's critical that you really start to dial in your time management this week, all right? If you want recommendations on setting schedules and managing your time, reach out to me or Chef Jackie. I will be happy to set you out a schedule for the week. And you give me your work week, give me your kids' school drop-off time, all that stuff. And I will work out this entire week for you, start to finish, around your personal schedule. Okay? Can't do it if you don't ask, though. You might have to give up a little Real Housewives or something, but anything worth doing is worth doing right? Little sacrifice makes it worth it. Thank you guys so much for joining us this evening. Thank you for watching the recording later on. Everybody wave to those watching the recording. All right. I'm going to go ahead and cut the recording. We'll hang out for a second for any questions you guys may have.